It's good to see you here. I just want to make sure the public knows today is election day and polls close at 8 p.m. So if for some reason you're here watching this meeting and you haven't yet had the opportunity to vote and plan to do so, make sure you save a little time for that. And with that, we will open up this meeting and we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. I'm Leslie Castellano. I'm here as Mayor Pro Tem tonight since Mayor Burgell could not be here. So we're wishing our best to Mayor Burgell. And with that, I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jarujiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments remove the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threaten to destroy their cultural practices. The city of Eureka acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. And we'll go ahead and do a roll call to acknowledge everyone being here.
Mayor Burgell is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Castellano.
Here.
Councilmember Moulton.
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Bauer.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras-Deloche.
Here.
Thank you. And please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. City Attorney Luna, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Castellano. Nothing to report out this evening.
Thank you. And with that, that brings us to Mayor's announcements. We do have a couple of proclamations on the table tonight. First, welcoming on, and I want to thank, I know Joe Bonino could not be here tonight, but I just want to appreciate that he brought this forward to us. This is a proclamation for the sons and daughters of Italy. And I want to thank Councilmember Moulton for reading that.
Delighted. Thank you. So there's no one here to accept this in chambers? You are? Please come join us. I'll read this and then I'll bring it out to you if you want to stand. The City of Eureka Proclamation in recognition of OSDIA 100th anniversary, March 16th, 2024. Whereas Eureka Lodge 1274 of the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America was founded on March 16th, 1924, and whereas on said date 92 members were initiated along with the installation of the lodge's first president, Victor Zampati, a prominent local attorney, and whereas the Eureka Lodge is the fourth oldest lodge in California. And whereas in 1963, the State Grand Lodge held its convention in Eureka at the Eureka Municipal Auditorium. And whereas the initial purpose in organizing the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America was to immediately help assimilate Italian immigrants to understand their rights, accept their responsibilities, and become productive members of American society. And whereas the Eureka Lodge today promotes the general welfare of the residents of Humboldt County through fundraising and charitable activities, and whereas annually the Eureka Lodge organizes an outdoor Italian festival, accordion recital, and bocce tournament at the Redwood Ball Fields in Cutton. And whereas the Sons and Daughters of Italy Eureka Lodge 1274 will celebrate their 100th anniversary at the Eureka Warfinger Building on March 23rd, 2024, beginning at 5 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Katie Moulton, on behalf of Mayor Kim Burgell and the Eureka City Council, do hereby proclaim March 16th, 2024 as Eureka Lodge 1274 Centennial Day and congratulate the Eureka Order of the Sons and Daughters of Italy on its 100th anniversary.
We would love to have you, after you receive your proclamation, if you have anything you want to share about your history. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm the chaplain of the lodge, and I've belonged since 2006. And we do many important things. We do the stand down. We do the ladies sit down, veterans sit down luncheon. We do 2 chicken and polenta dinners a year where we give scholarships. And we really have a good time always. We are a fraternal organization, and we care about each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for being here tonight and for sharing your story with us and for the way that Italians have influenced Eureka. And with that, our next proclamation will be read. And thank you to Councilmember Fernandez for the Brain Injury Awareness Month. Is anyone here to receive that? Great, come on up, please.
Proclamation in recognition of Brain Injury Awareness Month, March 2024. Whereas acquired brain injury is often overlooked and underfunded and affects thousands of Californians each year, and whereas a traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to or penetration of the head that disrupts the normal function of the brain. And whereas falls are leading cause of brain-related injuries in California, they can also be the result of motor vehicle crashes, assaults, sports-related injuries, occupational-related injuries, or opioid overdoses. And whereas 30% of sports-related injuries happen among youth 5 through 19 years of age, and because the signs of brain injury are not always well recognized, youth may put themselves at risk for another injury and potentially fatal second impact syndrome. And whereas as many as 50% of mild traumatic brain injuries go unreported and or undetected, and whereas an injury that happens in an instant can bring a lifetime of physical, cognitive, and behavioral challenges, and whereas early and adequate intervention, especially cognitive rehabilitation, will greatly increase the quality of life and enable individuals with brain injury to return to home, school, work, or their communities. And whereas March has been designated as National Brain Injury Awareness Month to promote awareness of the extent, consequences, causes, treatments, and prevention of acquired brain injuries. And whereas Making Headway Center for Brain Injury Recovery is dedicated to raising awareness of brain injury. And now, therefore, I, on behalf of Mayor Kim Burgell and the Eureka City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Brain Injury Awareness Month.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that Making Headway does in the community, and we would love to hear from you if you have anything you want to share.
Thank you. Thank you all. On behalf of Making Headway Center, we envision a community in which all people with brain injuries are able to live and participate fully in the community of their choice. So thank you all for being part of that community. Thank you.
And before we move on for mayor's announcements, I want to share that most all of us at Eureka City Council did participate in Bowl for Kids' Sake. I just want to thank Florence Parks and the team at Big Brothers Big Sisters for putting on such a fantastic event. It was great to be out there with so many community members. And I want to thank Councilmember Moulton for winning the City of Eureka the trophy for best costumes. Councilmember Moulton spent quite a bit of time creating costumes for the team. I'm sure you can see pictures out there on social media if you like. And this trophy will be here somewhere if you want to come take a look at it yourself. And with that, we'll close Mayor's announcements and move on to presentations. And we have Jacob Rosen here with the Care Mental Health Update, and that's the Crisis Alternative Response of Eureka. Thanks, Jacob.
All right. Good evening, everyone. There we go. So I'll try and be quick.
We're here for it, Jacob.
Thank you. So care we really kicked off last year in January, and I figured it would be a good time to give kind of that 1 year update. We have our first year full of data, and we just really completed our first kind of big expansion since starting things, and so now's a really good time for that. So today we'll talk about where we've been, where we are now, and kind of where we're going. And so first, kind of kicking things off, like what does our data look like? Or, well, not our data, our staffing. So I started in August of 22, and then Tyler and Shamika came on in January of last year. Shamika has since left. She went back to school to become a clinician, which was wonderful, and we definitely supported that. It also gave us the opportunity to hire some new fantastic folks just this January. Jumping into data, in 2023, we had 784 client contacts. We had 145 individual clients, 192 crisis encounters, and 570 case management contacts. That's with, really like 2.25 staff, trying to balance the developing of the program as well as then also being out in the field. That really limits my ability to be out. And so that was, the bulk of that was Tyler and Shamika all last year. Here's the same data broken down by quarter. As you can see, there's steady growth up until about September, and then Shamika ended up leaving in the end of October. And so we can kind of see that there's a bit of a drop, but we still definitely exceeded our second quarter of operation there. When we're looking at kind of breaking down what sort of encounters we're having, probably about a quarter of our contacts are crisis related. That means that either we've gotten information dispatched from EPD and we're co-responding with law enforcement, or we have identified someone in crisis from a community member or another agency, and are responding that way. The other 75% is case management. And so that's either follow-up or that's kind of crisis prevention engagement. So it's not a crisis in that moment, and we're engaging them to try and prevent that from happening in the first place. If we take a look at our outcomes, we're diverting 76% of individuals we contact for crisis from being placed on a 5150. About 13% of folks are placed on a 5150, and when that does happen, we do walk them through the system, and so we go and provide a warm handoff to the ER, and then we also contact the mobile response team with the county and provide that warm handoff, and we try to streamline the process as much as possible and make it as least traumatic as we can. The other 11% are folks who are arrested. Sometimes we do come out to calls where crimes have been committed, and at the end of the day, when the crisis is de-escalated, that crime has still been committed and they do end up arrested. If we break things down looking at anosognosia, which is the symptomatic lack of insight, this is a really important indicator because it can predict how many clients we're going to have return. Right, when folks have a severe mental illness and they lose the ability to kind of recognize that they're sick, that often means that we're going to have some treatment resistance, and that means that we're going to have to engage in kind of longer term contacts to build more rapport, and then to be able to get that person into treatment when they're finally ready for it. And so about 35% of the clients that we're contacting have that symptom, that's held pretty steady from quarter to quarter. When we look at rates of homelessness amongst clients that we're contacting, we're finding that about 65% of the clients that we work with are homeless or do not have permanent housing of some sort. About 35%, one third, are housed in either some sort of supportive living or in kind of a permanent residence. If we break down our client contacts by what type of call we're going on, 182 calls that we responded to were for someone who's a danger to themselves. 103 were someone who's a danger to others. And then 206 were related to grave disability. Grave disability meaning that they are unable to provide for food, shelter, or clothing due to a psychiatric condition. And then a number that actually was probably the most surprising, 289 calls that we went to had a medical condition that was either the primary reason that the crisis occurred or was exacerbating their mental status in that moment, which comes up to the next slide, that about 37% of the calls that we went to ended up having some sort of medical component, which really is going to assist in the future in kind of driving how we develop the program and what sort of staff we might hire. Toward the end of last year, we did receive a grant for $625,000 over 3 years from the CareStar Foundation. That allowed for us to come into our most recent expansion. And then that also brings us to where we are now. So currently, myself and Tyler are still here, but we've also hired Shane, Sam, and Mac. They all started in January and have been orienting and getting trained up since. This really allows us to have a much more robust presence in the community, having 4 folks that can steadily be out in the field instead of 2, or 1, as was November and December. Also allows us to begin the process of looking at alternative response, which we'll get to in a second. We've also moved into our new building. Hopefully this is the last move that we see for a while. We really appreciate the city's efforts in getting that put together, and it looks really, really great, and it's definitely working well for us. And we're looking forward to CSET moving in very soon. We've integrated fully into police radios. So all of our staff have done a sit-along and radio training with Eureka Police Department, and this will allow us to have more rapid communication with EPD and dispatch as we're out on calls. This is also what's going to be a key factor in us being able to do the alternative response component. Extra training. The state has been rolling out a mobile crisis benefit where counties are mandated to have mobile crisis teams statewide. And part of that was also standardizing the training for mobile crisis teams. We've taken advantage of that, and our staff has mostly completed the probably 80 hours of training that they've provided. We've also been steadily integrating our team with Uplift and Eureka Police Department. This comes in the form of Commander LaFrance and Jeff Davis and I meeting with Miles every month, as well as a monthly staff meeting where all 3 of our programs meet in their entirety and for an hour, and then we kind of discuss problemed areas or issues that we're seeing, and we work to problem solve those together. Just a couple other things that we've been involved in. CARE has definitely been a component of the Emergency Weather Overnight Center. Just this last weekend, we opened twice, and we were able to allow individuals to access roof over their head for 22 folks and kind of keep them warm overnight. Part of that has been assisting in screening folks and then referring them over to the center, and then coordinating with Eureka Police Department and Uplift to get them picked up in the morning and back to free meal. We also played a big part in the crisis intervention training that happened recently. CIT is a big part of our region, and we have quite a robust model for how rural of a county we are. The city of Eureka played a huge part in that by assisting in the steering committee. Commander LaFrance and I are both on that, as well as then also providing some of the ground team for providing the transportation for the site visits. And so it was city staff and city vehicles driving probably a dozen agencies around to various other locations to see what other agencies are doing for social services and mental health and substance use treatment, and really kind of help bring that training together. There are 45 attendees. I was thinking if there was more to that. So where are we going next? Next is we're going to implement like a true alternative response, right? That's in the name. We've been working up to that. The issue is we have to have a 2-person response for safety. We now have the staff, and the staff are now oriented to be able to do so. So the next step will be creating some protocols, triage protocols in order to go to safe calls. Essentially, if someone's committed a crime or violence, or if there's a weapon, that's probably going to rule us out because we're going to need a law enforcement presence for one of those reasons. But if there's a mental health or crisis call that does not have those factors, then that's likely a call that we can take on ourselves, where we'll send a 2-person response team in place of an officer. And then with the radios, we have the ability to summon backup if things escalate when we're out in the field. We're hoping to be able to roll this out soon. We'll be developing the protocols over the next month, and then we'll be moving on from there. Our next goal, too, is to also attain additional funding to get the last 2 positions that we would need to be able to provide 7-day coverage. So right now we feel pretty comfortable having a robust schedule that covers 5 days a week. In order to really have good coverage that's consistent on a 7-day-a-week basis, we do need 1 more case manager and 1 more clinician. So we'll be seeking funding for that via various grants, and there are some other opportunities that are coming up. Any questions?
Thank you, Councilmember Moulton.
Yeah. Thank you for the report, and of course for all of the wonderful work that you're doing. This kind of model, I think, is just going to be super helpful for folks who just need help and don't really need to be in trouble. A couple of things you mentioned I was just curious about. So you talk about diverting 5150, or somebody might ordinarily be put aside for 72 hours for their own safety. But you had folks that you called, and of course that's a big concern around here because mental health beds are really limited. What is diverted? What does that look like? You mean you go to talk to somebody and how do you not 5150 someone?
Yeah. So excellent question. So one of the main things that we do is we provide that de-escalation, right? And so we try to turn the heat down on the crisis. After we provide that de-escalation, then we can work with some therapeutic problem solving and seeing what sort of resources they need, what the problem is it something that can be remedied? Can we give them some skills or give them some tools to be able to cope better over the next couple of days so that we can avoid that escalation again back into a state where they may end up on that 5150? A lot of it is resource gathering or warm handoffs. Maybe they already have a treatment team, and in that case, we may be contacting that treatment team to then make that warm connection so that their treatment team, who knows them much better than we do in many situations, can take over and really provide a more in-depth level of care. And then for a lot of folks too, it's just getting resources that they may not have. Maybe they're new to the area and they don't know about free meal. And so in that situation, we might be bringing them over to free meal. We may be assisting them getting their driver's license or ID or social security reinstated, or, jumping through whatever hoops we can to try and again, de-escalate that crisis, get their basic needs met, and avoid having to go to a hospital.
Interesting. One more question, if you don't mind. You talk about how many of your calls turn out to be medical issues. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
What kind of medical issues are causing someone to get in touch with mental health crisis?
So a lot of folks may enter crisis and it may be related to a medical issue. For example, one that we see often is for older folks who have UTIs that can actually present like psychosis or delirium. And so someone may be hallucinating, someone may be talking to unseen others. They may be disoriented, disorganized, and in those situations, there may be a mental health call. We may respond out to that. But then we find out they don't have a history of mental health, and this is really unusual and has never happened before, and they're 65 years old. And in those situations, it can be a UTI. The thyroid plays a lot of role in mental health issues, whether your thyroid levels are too high or too low can influence mania or depression. We also just have a lot of folks who are stressed out by circumstances. They may have just received a terminal illness diagnosis, or they hurt themselves in some fashion, and now that's limiting their ability to care for themselves. And as a result, they've entered into crisis based on situational stress. And so in that situation, the medical issue isn't necessarily directly causing it, but it's kind of the exacerbating factor that's entering them into crisis. My hope is that eventually we can seek funding through the CareStar Foundation in their next grant cycle to get EMT case managers so that we can provide more of medical assessment capacity in the field to accommodate this, since a third of our calls are having some sort of chronic or acute medical component to them.
So who's providing the medical assessment now? Is it the clinicians?
Yeah, so our team has some basic training in being able to at least rule out when it's not mental health, and then in those situations, then we'll call in medical or we'll delegate to law enforcement or an EMT.
I see. Thank you. I appreciate your
welcome.
answers.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you. I think your program does fantastic work, and you're obviously well versed too. Not a lot of people know the way that urinary tract infection can affect the cognitive abilities, let alone anybody over a certain age too, having worked with the elderly myself. So thank you for bringing that knowledge to the work that you do. I'm curious if you can not differ, but help explain the relationship between CARE and CSET and EPD. Just kind of give us an idea, because those are three distinct programs, one being housed within EPD and one being housed within the city.
Absolutely. I kind of see it as the city's continuum of care. So on one end, we have Uplift Eureka, which provides a lot of that kind of social service and housing element. They do provide a lot of street outreach. And I mean, honestly, the street outreach workers provide a ton of mental health case management effectively as well. They're making a lot of connections, getting people to services and engaging in de-escalation regularly down at Free Meal and some of the other folks that they contact around the city. And so that's kind of that spectrum. Care then falls into that, more acute mental health, substance use, crisis-related arena. And then CSET touches on the mental health and substance use crisis-related arena, but also then has that accountability component. There's a different effect for some folks when a uniformed officer is present, especially if it's in collaboration with someone from care, and we can kind of have that dual approach. Also, CSET's super important because that's oftentimes going to be the first folks who have contact with somebody who's having that mental health crisis. And so having officers within EPD that are, specially trained and assigned to go out and field mental health calls, especially as care is still building up its availability, is just critically important. The other piece with CSET is because they're not patrol, they're not grinding from call to call. And so that really enables us to be able to provide a thorough co-response. So if there's a client who we know is in crisis and we may need to go out and maybe they're a little dangerous and aggressive, and we need to do that co-response component, we can go out and we can spend an hour and a half out with that client with CSET present, which is just not something that patrol would have the capacity to be able to do because calls would be stacking up. And so that's kind of our continuum.
Yeah, so it's kind of responding to the emergent, hopefully downgrading that to something more urgent, and then, like you said, acute, something a bit more manageable in that moment, and then getting connected to them. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had that understanding. Yeah.
I just want to make some from an organizational standpoint. EPD is the city, first of all. And second of all, the way the organizationally is, I'm extremely loud right now, so I'm sorry. But organizationally, when I took over as city manager, we moved our social services programming under economic development, which falls underneath the city manager's office. And so when we added care after that, we included care in that kind of social services programming. We felt that, providing community members a job with a better quality of life, all of those things fell under economic development. So organizationally, it falls under economic development right now, which is overseen by the city manager. And I think that managing mental health condition, Rosen, it was good that he brought that up. I want to make it clear that when there is a knife, a gun, a weapon, or a threat of violence, it's not just EPD who goes out there. If there's a mental health component to it, there's a co-response with both CSET or patrol and care staff or Uplift staff.
No, I appreciate that, city manager. It was more, like I said, I was trying to find the language because they're not different so much as they work with one another. And so I'm sure someone out there will love that soundbite. But for what it's worth, too, going back to what my colleague, Councilmember Moulton, was asking about the diverted and the resulting 5150s. When care goes out there as part of the response, are you making a recommendation to law enforcement? Does law enforcement make that determination? How does that work in that capacity?
From my experience over the last year, it's really been mutual. And so there's been a lot of consultation, and I've really appreciated EPD's willingness, even on the patrol level, to really kind of come and work with us and discuss things openly around, kind of what the best avenue is going to be for that client and the outcome. And so oftentimes before any decision's made, we'll kind of step back and situation providing us the ability to do so. And we'll have a bit of a discussion and consult around what the best options will be, whether that's crime's been committed and, we're just going to make sure that the mental health box is checked for evaluation in the jail, or whether, it's something that can be diverted to a lower level of care, and jail and the hospital are not necessary, in which case oftentimes care is able to take over and dismiss patrol back into the community, and then we can kind of continue to work with that individual and get them connected. And that's what we're seeing, that 76% of the time is that we're able to kind of take over the call for those folks and assist them in getting what they need without law enforcement needing to be further involved.
So it's a collaborative approach then to that 5150 determination?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Especially since currently the clinicians in the county have to be employed by county behavioral health in order to be able to write a 5150. And so even though with all my experience, because I'm employed by the city, I'm not able to write that hold.
We're going to fix that.
Yeah, that's in process.
Right. So thank you for that. I have a few more. Is that okay? Okay. And then I want to switch tracks here and ask about the emergency weather centers. I'm very, very enthused that the city started offering these within the last year, because even though 22 sounds like a low number, that's 22 people who aren't on the street during inclement weather. So I think we've done a good job with that. From a city perspective, in terms of safety and barriers, have there been any behavioral or safety issues that have been brought up since we've instituted these over the last year or so?
Not at the center themselves. There have been some issues in transporting people back, but that's been more once staff is starting to dive in and kind of do more case management work, and then we learn other issues are arising. At which point, then that's care staff that's fielding that. But as far as the staff at our community partners who've been hosting those sites, we haven't had any issues.
Okay. And it's my understanding that, again, if someone's intoxicated in some way or another, we still allow them to attend, or still allow them the use of the facility. And again, that's my aim, is to find these low barrier options, because for the options that we do have, some of them to put prohibitions in place, but we allow these people to stay. And there haven't been any issues.
That's correct.
Okay.
There haven't been any issues. I will say, when we do our screening process, really we're looking for the lowest barriers possible. And so really, unless someone is actively intoxicated to the degree where their behavior is going to become a problem, or they're at medical risk at the level of intoxication that they're at and need to go to the ER, then we're letting folks come to the EWOC. And with regards to the behavioral issues and psychiatric issues, again, as long as they're able to maintain in a group setting, we're letting folks in. We also have kennels, and so last weekend we had 2 dogs the first night and 1 dog the second. And we were able to, those were folks who would otherwise not have been in a shelter or under a roof that night, because we allowed the kennels and the pets, and so we really have worked hard to make it as low barrier as possible. As long as they're not actively dying from a medical condition or actively acting out due to mental health or intoxication, we're getting folks in.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. This is my last one. So you said that we're going to over here in the next few months move to a 7-day week response, correct?
In the next couple of months, we'll be working towards the alternative response component. So we'll be implementing those protocols. We'll also be in that time seeking funding, either from grants or we have some other potential funding sources to go to the 7-day-a-week model. But we will need funding before we can get that last case manager and clinician position.
Right. And even then, this still wouldn't be a 24-hour program, correct?
Correct. To go 24 hours, we would need, let me do the math, 3 more clinicians and 3 more case managers at minimum.
And so in these times, we default to some sort of peak period. How do we make that determination?
We make that determination by analyzing the 911 call data from EPD. And so they're able to filter out in RIMS, which is their kind of records management system, when the peak number of mental health service requests are coming through 911. And then we're able to stagger our times to that. Currently, things really begin to peak at about 10 a.m. and then really begin to decrease at about 8 p.m. and then really kind of hit their low through the night at about 10 p.m.
I could go on for this for like another hour, but I'll let the rest of council. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez. Councilmember Bauer.
Jacob, I want to thank you. I was looking at the dates and I was like, man, I swear we just started this program, and what you've done in a short period of time with getting clinicians, and it's really impressive. And I hope the community appreciates what you all do, because it is a very difficult job, and it affects things like our emergency room, which at times has become a crisis intervention center, and so appreciate that. I do have a couple questions though about, I often hear a lot from the public, people yelling on the streets. We all see it. We know it's a problem, but is it a problem that's unique to Eureka? That's a simple question, right?
Absolutely, it is not a problem unique to Eureka. We're seeing mental health service needs and demands rise across the country, and we're finding that the rate that we're growing the mental health workforce is just not sufficient. Hence, things like Prop 1 and other measures and initiatives that are being pushed to try and expand that. And I'll say that regardless of what folks think of Prop 1, whether that's going to fix it or not, that's why we're seeing more of these initiatives coming out. It's just because there's been a slew of studies, one from the RAND Corporation. There's a huge workforce analysis in San Diego that identified that there are going to be like 18,000 workers short in the next 10 years. And so, I mean, there's a lot of data that shows that we're coming up short and we need more.
Yeah. And another part to that, though, I think about all the time is, where are these people coming from? I mean, are they part of our community that just fall out of services, I think about all the time. And is it in Eureka, when you're making contact with people, are you asking that question? Like, where are you from? How can we help, find your family? I mean, that's the sad part, right? Is that they're alone on the streets. And is that something we ask or?
Yeah, we certainly follow up with that. One of the, one of the evidence-based practices for working with folks in crisis, especially once they're de-escalated in that moment, is really trying to return them to natural supports, right? So how, what's worked in the past to de-escalate and stabilize them, and how do we get that? And part of that is, do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have a social network that has supported you in the past and that has helped enable your stability? And so that we absolutely are exploring that with most of the clients, so long as they're willing to even work with us and talk with us about it. Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Happy to do it.
Go ahead, Councilmember Contreras-Deloach. No, this is a presentation, so there aren't.
Yeah. I feel like everybody's covered any question I was going to ask. So I just really wanted to thank you and just express my appreciation for this program and overall just all the work that different city staff are doing between these different organizations. It's just one of the things that the city is doing that I feel I'm not proud of that I'm contributing, but just proud of that this is something the city's doing and that all of you are so actively engaged in. And I just think it's something really unique and special. I appreciate it. Appreciate the dedication that all of you bring.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have one comment, a couple of questions. Firstly, for those who are watching and saw the slide with the mention of the new building with the picture of the Pink Lady, the offices aren't actually in the Pink Lady, though those would be fantastic offices. Oh. They are in the municipal auditorium, or where are
No, so our new building we're calling it the Waterfront Annex, and it is the old Coast Guard building down by Vista Del Mar and the old England Marine Center.
Foot of commercial.
I think it's, yeah.
Thank you. And I know that there's coming legislation or, legislation in California related to people experiencing disabilities. And it seems like you have, pretty unique insight on this. Have you been able to provide any information or, suggestions to folks who are implementing legislation or thinking about kind of the future work around people with disabilities?
I do my best to advocate as much as I can. I haven't had any direct ability to advocate on behalf of folks for are you referencing like SB 43?
Sure, yeah.
And the expansion of the gravely disabled definition. So I haven't had a direct chance to say my piece one way or the other on that. But I would be happy to, and if that's something that, council would like a report on, I'd be happy to provide more information on that.
I mean, I don't know if I can speak for all of council. I certainly cannot speak for all of council, but, I think you have a very meaningful and rich perspective that would be important on this issue. So, I think anytime the city of Eureka can help inform legislators about rural Northern California and the creative solutions that as well as our struggles. I think that that's really important, and I would personally be excited for you to be, participating in those conversations whenever possible.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do so. And with regards to SB 43, Commander LaFrance and I, in collaboration with RCRC, Redwood Coast Regional Center, and Humboldt County Behavioral Health, are providing a training on 5150 writing, autism spectrum disorder, and SB 43. We have 2 trainings tomorrow and 1 training next Wednesday. So if you'd like more info on SB 43 and have the availability to go to those trainings, that's certainly something that could be done. I could also work with Deputy Director Paul Bugnacki, who will be presenting on SB 43 and the county's approach to that, to see if that's something that we could present to council on at a later date.
Thank you. And thank you. I think everyone is, very appreciative of your work and your innovation and your commitment to, engaging, with kind of deep care for, for the people you interact with. And yeah, it's truly valuable. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that concludes this presentation. So we will appreciate you being here tonight. There are no board and commission reports, so we will open up our public comment period. This is the time for members of the public who wish to be heard on matters that do not appear on the agenda. City Council policy is to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. The public will be allowed to speak concurrently with the calling of an agenda item following the staff presentation on that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Okay, and go ahead and come up if you're here to make public comment, and thanks in advance for being here.
Hear me okay? Okay. Where's it up? Roman Dylan Fierro, Eureka, local citizen. Commenting on the land acknowledgement, it seems like you may be exceeding the bounds of your authority by that statement, which kind of basically impinges on the sovereignty of the state of California and the nation. When I look at Article 3, Section 1 of the California Constitution, it reads, "The state of California is an inseparable part of the United States of America, and the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land." I don't have the next section in front of me, or the other section talks about the longitude and latitude thereof. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So you maybe want to talk to some of the county council or city council maybe. All right, thanks.
Go ahead and come up. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Micah Starr. I live in Eureka, and I'm an educator in Eureka. I wanted to talk about PTSD. I actually didn't realize that there would be a presentation about the mental health and homeless services today, so I thought that some of what was spoken about tied in nicely to what I wanted to say. It's hard for me to imagine that there's anyone here now that hasn't been affected personally, or someone close to them with PTSD or the long-lasting effects of trauma. Every day I think about how grateful I am that I have never been through war. I think about all our veterans, many of whom are homeless or not getting what they need. And I think about how the United States is airdropping aid to the people of Gaza, spending millions of dollars to send less than 2 trucks worth of aid, all while supporting the roads being blocked to send them trucks of aid. And it's hard. It's hard for me to think about that. And I find people in the community who think similarly to me. I find people who think very differently from me, including within my community as a Jewish person. And I cannot speak for other people's pain. I can't speak for the pain of my Jewish community members who have survived extreme violence while in Israel. And I can't speak for the pain of the Palestinian people, for a child who has to find out that their parent didn't make it back from when they went to go get food because they were shot. I can't speak for the descendants of the native peoples here who have survived attempts at genocide. But I do know that even though a lot of my own history as a Jewish person has been forgotten or lost, I know that I'm a descendant of someone who has survived an attempted genocide. And I could not wish that upon others, ever. So I thank you all for listening and for remaining open to conversations about the need for a ceasefire and the need for an end to war around the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eileen Barcht. I just wanted to make the City Council aware of a safety issue. This was a letter, it was in a letter to the editor, and my sister and I went by and looked at this particular space location near Sequoia Park. The yellow bumps near the park, and I'm reading from the article. Bumps near Sequoia Park are a health hazard. Lately, a number of blister-like yellow bubbles called detectable warning tiles are being installed at a number of intersections here in Eureka for the visually impaired. Unfortunately, too many of these are not being well maintained and can be a hazard to anyone, disabled or not. Two good examples can be found near the entrance to the playground at Sequoia Park, which would be the southwest corner of the park. The tiles have raised up enough which could result in people tripping, especially the visually impaired. Other tiles have cracks along the edges. If the city is going to install these, they need to take care of them. 10 years ago, I tripped over going onto one of these when I was living in the Bay Area. I broke my jaw. Okay, this stuff doesn't apply to this, but I myself have tripped over this like a 1/4 of an inch tile when I was working, and I fell, landed my kneecap on the corner of the curb. It was very painful, but the city at that time, Arcata, called me the next day and took very good care of it. So I would just like to see the city of Eureka fix that problem, especially at Sequoia Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in council chambers who wishes to make public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to make public comment? Please raise your hand.
I see no one.
Okay. Maybe everyone's out voting. Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Fernandez making the motion, Councilmember Moulton seconding it. Everyone cast their votes.
Unanimous yes vote, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Also, for the public, this is my first time doing being the mayor pro tem, so if I seem hesitant, it's because I'm feeling it out. So hopefully we'll keep this meeting rolling smoothly and move on to item G, legislative action correspondence. This authorizes the mayor or the city manager to sign correspondence on behalf of the city council to support or oppose legislation or administrative rules proposed or pending action at the county, state, or U.S. government levels. Does anyone have anything they want to bring forward at this time? Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I'm not fully prepared, but maybe it's something you want to look at is Senate Bill 119, and it deals with hospitals and seismic retrofitting. So they're supposed to have it done, I think, by 2024 or some kind of plan in place. And this bill specifically mentions St. Joe's, giving them a few more years to do it. I don't know if that's why I need some more information, but I don't know if it would affect the hospital operating, not having their plan in place. So I hope to have a letter to bring back for next council meeting to hopefully support that, give them some more time to do their seismic activities. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no ordinances or resolutions, so that brings us to item I, report and action items, where we have Director Millar presenting the 2024 Participatory Budget Program. Thanks, Director Millar.
Good evening. Tonight's report is on the 2024 participatory budget. The presentation will go over what is a participatory budget, how does it work, and then the results of last year's program. So what is a participatory budget? It's essentially where community members decide how to spend part of the city's budget. It requires public participation with the help of city staff and council. And really the only guidelines are that the projects must be a public good within city limits and reflect the vision and values of the city of Eureka. Beyond what a participatory budget what it does, it's a great tool to teach the public about the realities of budgeting and project management. It's a great way to encourage civic engagement, and there's the potential to identify future city leadership through this program. So how does it work, or how does it work for the city of Eureka? Well, the first step is a budget allocation. So a couple months ago, we looked at last year's budget and the results, and we had a little more surplus than we first thought. So we set aside about $75,000 for this program, and we are planning to allocate about $15,000 to each ward. So the good thing is this step is complete. The second step to the program is to assign community leaders. So we are interested in identifying 2 community members from each ward to serve as a budget delegate and alternate. And we are hoping that the council will select individuals within their ward. The second step is to essentially host those delegates or community members at an introductory meeting to review the program guidelines and to begin the planning process. And by planning process, what I mean is we are going to work, or staff will work with delegates to essentially decide where to have the meetings, how to have the meetings, whether they're in person or on Zoom, ways we can initiate outreach, essentially what they think a good voting system or a way to select projects will be. So once that's complete, then staff will work with the delegates to help with outreach, and staff will help with communication for accepting applicants to participate in each of these meetings. So step number 4 is to have a series or, as little as 1 to 3 meetings with the public. The purpose of these meetings is essentially to identify potential projects. During these meetings, we will include staff from different departments to help with feasibility as well as cost estimates. And then we will work with these participants to hopefully select a project or series of projects per ward. And then finally, once each ward selects a project, we will work with delegates and maybe some participants to come up with a presentation where they will present at a city council meeting and receive final approval for their project or projects. So that is the basics of this year's program, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any direction on how we can, either go with what I've presented or to add or take away from it.
Do any council members have questions?
Are you gonna show us some examples from last year next?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my question. Just to flesh out the picture of what we're talking about.
Last year we had 5 different projects. That included rental assistance, which was funded for $30,000. We had a utility assistance program for $15,000. One project was to host a tiny home / authorized encampment workshop. We installed some safety devices on the corner of California and Wabash. And then this isn't complete, but hopefully by the end of the fiscal year or around May or June, we will have a intersection mural at the intersection of Summer and West 14th Street. So those are some examples. They're repeatable. Well, maybe not the mural, but yeah.
Other questions from council members? This is typically we don't have public comment on reports and action items, do we? Do? Okay.
We do.
Oh, perfect. Oh, great. Excellent. Well then, thank you. Thank you for the report, Director Malak. Oh,
It's almost done.
You're not done.
Yeah, there's a couple more.
Oh, sorry.
So I just want to touch, there's been some questions in the past about some of the programs that came out of the participatory budget, and that had to do with rental assistance and utility assistance. These were very successful. We exhausted all the monies for these 2 projects. And I just want to update the council that we have recently identified just under $300,000 to essentially re-up that housing assistance program. We're hopefully going to make these funds available around April. This is the work of the CAPE program. They've gone after this money in the past, and this year they are earmarking it for housing assistance. On the utility assistance side, we're not as successful, but we think we have some leads. So we're going to continue to research and go after some grant opportunities. Ironically, utility assistance is harder to come across. There's a lot of opportunities for housing assistance nowadays. There was monies for utility assistance from the COVID opportunities, but today they're few and far between, but we will continue to pursue those opportunities. So.
I'll look for that end slide next in the future. Any other questions from council members? Okay. I have just a quick question in terms of the process. For this year's round, will there be the opportunity for cross-pollination between wards in case there's similar projects or potentials for collaboration as part of the process?
Yes, I think the plan is that as we run the meetings and we collect these project ideas, we'll compile a comprehensive list and share that with each group, so that if they see a project that they might want to copy or maybe piggyback on, they'll have that opportunity.
Great, thank you. Okay, and sorry, Councilmember Fernandez.
It's my understanding too that those that participate, whether as a representative or an alternate, there's a stipend attached to those roles.
Correct.
Okay. And then going to what Mayor Pro Tem here, I think, alluded to is that there will be an opportunity for cross collaboration, and so that means that, from my perspective, as they collaborate, potentially it could either be ward by ward or a project, or they could come up with something citywide.
Sure.
Is there the potential? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open this item up for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to make comment on this at this time? Okay, none in chambers. Anyone on Zoom? Go ahead and raise your hand.
Seeing none.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public. It's very like Brechtian sort of end. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council for discussion and a motion. Councilmember Fernandez.
Much like the report that we received earlier, I'm very enthused by the initiative of this program and what's come out of it so far. And I really see it as an opportunity for us to engage those not otherwise engaged or on the periphery there of our city engagement. So I'm thrilled. I wish the amount could be a little more, but I understand that's not where we're at least budget-wise. So the fact that we have this and it's an opportunity for, again, people to collaborate within our city limits and figure out the role and justification on how this money might be used is going to be exciting. And I'll make a motion to approve. Just have to.
Second.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if I had to read the whole thing. The 2024 participatory budget program, or is there any? Oh, okay.
We've
That's
received a report.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not taking any action on this then.
We are.
Oh.
It's an approval.
Okay.
Your motion is.
Mhm. If you choose to provide any direction, which it doesn't seem to be the case.
Would anyone like to second this item?
I did.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Councilmember Moulton seconding it. Is there any further discussion? I just want to say quickly, I appreciate bringing forward the housing assistance program, and the work that does related to homelessness prevention. And it will open up, hopefully, more opportunity for people to use that funding that was included last year for other projects this year. So for that, go ahead and vote.
Unanimous yes vote, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to future agenda items. Do any council members have items they wish to put on a future agenda? Okay, none tonight. We'll close that item and move to the city manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, Mayor and Pro Tem and Council. I just have a couple of quick things first to talk about a little bit more in the mental health program. Managing Mental Health Commission, Rosen made mention about us trying to move to 7 days a week. We're definitely in discussions about getting there, and I feel really weird because I feel like Oz right now, but we're very close to getting that. We have discussions that we're having with a local entity to make that happen. If that doesn't happen, we still have other alternatives. The overall intent of that is to get to, in the first phase, to make sure that we have 7-day coverage during those peak hours for mental health calls, and trying to allow some time for EPD to concentrate on other things and get that alternative response completely up and running. But ultimately, the intent is to have 24/7. If we get to that point, we plan on combining that overall social services programming into a department of its own, and we feel as though we have a very high likelihood of doing that. We're trying to reach that goal, hopefully by fiscal year, which is very optimistic, but if not, by the calendar year to get to that point. So the other thing I want to talk about is that Commander LaFrance is working with EPD and CSET and CAPE and CARE on their biannual survey of community members experiencing homelessness. So that's going to be starting up this week. There's a prize. The person who does the most interviews gets to go to a steak dinner with the city manager. So if any of you would like to participate with that, please get a hold of Commander LaFrance, and we'll be doing that survey. It's been invaluable. It talks to some of the points that Councilmember Bauer was speaking of about where people are from, how they got here, those type of things. And so it provides really valuable information to us. We can target some of our programming for those folks that are in need of services. So that's all I have.
Thank you, City Manager Slattery. And that moves us to the last item on our agenda, which is council reports and city-related travel reports. Let's start with Councilmember Contreras-Deloach.
So I attended the Human Rights Commission discussion on free speech, and there were they had a panel of people that spoke, and I was particularly moved by some of what Betty Chen, who was participating in that, some of what she shared, and it was good too. I had a really good turnout. There were a lot of people that were able to attend. And city and county had a really good attendance, and the discussion was really good. And then I also participated in the Bowl for Kids' Sake, and then upcoming travel this Friday. Cal Cities has their meeting in Willits for the Redwood Empire Division general membership meeting, so I'll be attending that.
Thank you. Councilmember Moulton.
Skipping around. Thank you. Let's see. Since the last council meeting, I haven't done any city-related travel, but I did attend a 2x2 with Eureka City Schools. Always a productive meeting. They presented to us the synthesis of their portrait of a graduate survey, which was very interesting. They did this massive survey, sort of a strategic visioning for what the community wants to see a graduate of Eureka City Schools look like. And I tell you, they're shooting for a well-rounded person who can be productive in the modern world, not just rolling along with things as they've always been, but really moving forward with a useful education from where we are now. And it's just wonderful to see. I did do Bowl for Kids' Sake. I didn't bowl, but did raise a little bit of money. They made a lot of suffragette signs. Then I went to dinner at Station 1, which was nice. Ate pesto chicken sandwiches with some firefighters. They're all very charming. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, thank you. I attended my mother's 80th birthday, which I thought was very fun. The whole family. I just throw it out there. Happy birthday, Mom. Went to a Keep Eureka Beautiful meeting. There's a tree planting March 16th that we'll be doing for some street trees. I did Bowl for Kids' Sake, and I bowled terrible. I'm seriously disappointed in myself, but still had a great time supporting that cause. Let's see, and Cooper Gulch, March 30th, we will be doing an invasive species removal and cleanup. So please come on out. I believe it's on the city's Facebook page. Looking forward to having community members come out for that. And I will also be attending the Redwood Empire Division general meeting Friday, March 8th. I'm looking forward to representing our city and talking to all of our friends from other cities in the northern region. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for giving me time to write out what I needed to. I also attended the Eureka City Schools 2x2 with Councilmember Moulton, and appreciate their work on the Portrait of a Graduate and their work to increase literacy in the school district, particularly by asking folks from the community to come and read to students. I love that program, and unfortunately I double booked myself and forgot to put that on my calendar, so I need to follow up with them and make up a day. Like everyone else here from council, I was able to briefly attend the Bowl for Kids' Sake, where I bowled nothing but strike, just the one. I showed up in time just to do that and be there for everyone else to win the coveted award there for best. What was that, best costume? Yeah. So I thought that they put together a fantastic event, and it's always a great opportunity to go and visit the the bowling alley there. Next weekend, I will be at the Civic Well Policymakers Conference, weather permitting. The topics are to include energy, infrastructure, transportation, and disaster preparedness. Also next weekend, or this coming weekend, participating in a ride-along with EPD, coincidentally during those aforementioned peak hours of mental health calls. So we'll see how that goes and the type of report I have to follow up from that. And then this Saturday, March 9th at 5:30 at the Gazebo in Old Town near the Wiyot Cultural Center, Queer Humboldt and the Eureka Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are co-hosting a ritual in response to the need for healing and community building as the result of the recent death of the Oklahoma teen Nex Benedict.
Thank you. And with that, just so the public knows, I'll also be traveling this Friday for the Redwood Region League Cal Cities meeting. So we'll be going to Willits and back. And thank you all for your service to the community, and to everyone out there, have a great evening. This meeting is adjourned.